I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
United States of America,
which
to
stands
the world,
one nation, under God,
nation,
indivisible, with liberty
indivisible,
for all.
with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please take a roll call?
Councillor Grizzle,
Here.
Councillor Rees-Camp,
Here.
Councillor Stouter,
Here.
Councillor Bolin,
Here.
Councillor Steinhebel,
Here.
and Councillor Furlow.
Here.
All right, first up, we have the consent calendar. Tonight's consent calendar contains the City Council agenda from August 12th, Planning Commission meetings for April 30th, May 7th, June 17th, and 24th, the July 8th regular session of council, an easement for the new sewer main extension at 2nd and Ash Street, and liquor license approval for Muggs Coffee House, full on and off premises application. I'll entertain a motion.
I move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent calendar passes. All right, we're going to move on to the proclamations. And first up, we're going to pass this to Ron Whitlatch for the introduction of Nancy Brewer. Ron?
Thank you, councilors. Tonight, we have Nancy Brewer with us. I don't see her on video, but I think I see her that she's on the phone. There she is. All right. She has agreed to at least take on our interim city manager position. I've met with Nancy a couple of times. Trey and I both have. And with that, I'll probably turn it over to her. One of the things I was going to do originally was introduce all the council, but it's going to be really hard to do it on the screen. So maybe if each councilor would go around and introduce yourselves to her so that she knows who you guys are. And then from there, we can turn it over to Nancy and you guys can have a conversation. And it's more of just an introduction time than anything else. And if you got questions, and give her, she can give a little background, and we just kind of go from there. So I'm starting here. Okay.
Sorry. I'll start it off. I'm Jason Bolin. I'm Council President, Ward 3, and very happy to have you join us tonight, Nancy. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Councilor Rees-Camp, Ward 1. Nice to have you on board. Looking forward to working with you.
I'm Robert Furlow, also from Ward 1. Welcome.
Thanks.
I'm Karen from Ward 2.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, I'm Michelle Steinhebel. I'm Ward 3 counselor.
Okay.
And good evening. Rebecca Grizzle, Ward 2. I'm the nice one.
All right. That's a heck of an introduction. Nancy Brewer. Nancy Brewer. I have worked for Corvallis for 30 years. I've been in finance pretty much all of that time. Came to the city when ballot measure 5 was coming up for voters. So I've worked through measure 5, measure 4750 implementation, have done financings, talked with Matt, gave him a recommendation for going with PFM, and interested to see that you've got a refunding on the agenda for tonight. We've enjoyed our relationship with PFM over the last few years. I have lived in Oregon for 30 years, came here for my husband to go to law school. I'm sitting outside because the family's in the house making dinner. Our daughter will start at Willamette University in a couple of weeks, where they're hoping to do classes on campus. So we're finishing packing and the brouhaha that goes with sending a freshman off to college. So I'm looking forward to being able to work with you for the next year and getting to know you all better, getting to know the staff better. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, we have a couple of proclamations tonight. First being Patriot Day, September 11, 2020. Whereas the terrorist attacks that occurred on September 11, 2001 changed America forever. Thousands of innocent lives were lost in these terrible events, but in no way was this tragic day a defeat for our country. And whereas instead of dividing our nation or crushing our resolve, September 11, 2001 unified our country, strengthened our resolve, and deepened our commitment to liberty, equality, and justice. And whereas out of this tragedy flowed generosity, hope, and unity, while citizens nationwide demonstrated extraordinary bravery and compassion, the people of America gained a new appreciation of what it means to be a hero and a patriot by witnessing the unwavering loyalty of our firefighters, police, medical emergency personnel, first responders, and individuals who put the safety of their coworkers and friends above their own. And whereas we take time to acknowledge those who have worked diligently to honor the memories of all victims, therefore, in memory of the heroes whose lives were so tragically lost, and in special recognition of courageous men and women everywhere who selflessly risk their own lives to save others and protect our liberty, I, Jason Boland, do hereby proclaim September 11th, 2020 as Patriot Day and National Day of Service and Remembrance, and call upon all citizens to observe this day with gratitude and patriotism, and to make a personal pledge to honor and cherish the freedom that defines America. Whew. Next up, we have the Prepared, Not Scared, September 2020 Preparedness Month Proclamation. Whereas the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, along with other federal, state, local, private, and volunteer agencies, is working to deter, prevent, and respond to all types of natural and technological emergencies. And whereas the City of Lebanon recognizes that we are all susceptible to such emergencies and demonstrates a broad-based need for our citizens of Lebanon to have such a plan for response and recovery in the event of an emergency. And whereas Preparedness Month creates an important opportunity for our community to learn more about preparing for all types of emergencies. And whereas all citizens are encouraged to take preparedness measures before, during, and after a major emergency by making preparedness a priority in their schools, businesses, communities, and homes by following 4 simple steps: build an emergency kit, make an emergency plan, be informed, get involved. And whereas the Lebanon community is encouraged to participate in citizen preparedness activities and to review the Oregon Office of Emergency Management website for preparedness information. Now, therefore, as City Councilor of Lebanon in support of National Preparedness Month, I hereby do proclaim September 2020 as Preparedness Month in the City of Lebanon, Oregon. And one more. We have September 2020 National Senior Center Month, delivering vital connections. Whereas older Americans are significant members of our society, investing their wisdom and experience to help enrich and better the lives of younger generations. And whereas the Lebanon City Senior Center has acted as a catalyst for mobilizing the creativity, energy, vitality, and commitment of the older residents of Lebanon, Oregon. And whereas through the wide array of services, programs, and activities, senior centers empower older citizens to contribute to their own health and well-being, and the health and well-being of their fellow citizens of all ages. And whereas the Lebanon Senior Center affirms the dignity, self-worth, and independence of older persons by facilitating their decisions and actions, tapping their experiences, skills, and knowledge, and enabling their continued contributions to the community. Now, therefore, I, Jason Boland, do hereby proclaim September 2020 National Senior Center Month and call upon all citizens to recognize the special contributions of the Senior Center participants and the special efforts of the staff and volunteers who work every day to enhance the well-being of the older citizens of our community. And we do have a fantastic senior center and a fabulous staff and director there, and I'm very proud of what they do. So thank you to them for that. All right, next up we have public comments. And on page 62 of your packet, there was one public comment. Did everyone get a chance to review that? Anybody have any comments on that letter from Ms. Puccio? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. Did the clerk receive any additional public comments?
No.
Okay, we'll move into regular session now. And we're going to temporarily adjourn as Lebanon City Council and convene as the Urban Renewal Agency. And item number 1 would be the approval of a resolution authorizing a minor amendment to the Northwest Lebanon Urban Renewal District's boundaries, presented by Kelly Hart, Community Development Director.
Good evening and thank you. Before we get into the actual minor amendment that's proposed, I wanted to provide a bit of background and understanding of why we're doing these actions tonight and how we got here. So before you tonight is a proposal for an adoption of the Millrace Urban Renewal Plan and a minor modification to the Northwest Urban Renewal Plan. Some quick background: in March of this year, the City Council held a work session to discuss the status of the Northwest URD and some options of how to move forward. As a quick refresher, the city uses urban renewal districts as a tool to fund public infrastructure projects and to help remove blight in order to promote economic growth and development within the city, and for the benefits of it's for the benefit of the residents and businesses within the city. There are currently 4 urban renewal districts throughout our city. These districts each use a separate pot of funding of taxes, existing taxes that are shared from other other agencies, and are specifically set aside to be able to do these public improvement projects within those urban renewal boundary areas to help promote economic growth. As part of the urban renewal districts, there's a maximum amount of money that we can spend over the life of these districts, and that maximum amount of money is called the maximum indebtedness. Basically, these districts have taxes that are already existing set aside to these districts to use for these projects, and we can only use a certain amount of money in these areas through those existing taxes to be able to do these projects. And once we hit that maximum indebtedness, the urban renewal district would then close and no longer exist because all the projects would have been funded through that. However, what we've identified is upon further review of the Northwest Urban Renewal District, we identified that the district is currently on track to exceed the maximum amount of expenditures or that maximum indebtedness unless we were to do some modifications. One of the such modifications that we're proposing is the removal of a certain amount of land area that's currently in the urban renewal district. It's and is tied to an existing already approved economic development agreement for public infrastructure improvements associated with about a 51-acre project site, which is at the very north of the city. And then we would remove that from the Northwest Urban Renewal District and move it over to its own new urban renewal district so it has its own funding source to honor that existing economic development agreement. And then by removing that economic development agreement from the Northwest Urban Renewal District, that helps to alleviate the issue of overspending within that district. It is incredibly important to note that as part of this whole process and as part of the existence of the urban renewal districts, nothing under consideration tonight would be an increase in anybody's taxes as they currently sit today, and it would not result in an increase in any utility bills associated with anybody's current billing structures. This plan concept was discussed during the work session in March with the City Council. And since then, we have followed the state statute notification requirements by contacting all of the impacted taxing entities regarding the plan. We briefed the Lane County Board of Commissioners on these actions, and we also presented it to the Planning Commission where they made a motion to support a comprehensive plan consistency finding that the proposals are consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. We also provided public notification to the public at large through all of the utility bills, and we also issued a public notice within the local newspaper. And so that's kind of why we're doing what we're doing, the process that we've gone through so far. I know it's a little bit technical, but that's as clear as I can make it in a nutshell. And tonight what we're doing is a 2-step process. One step has to occur first regarding the Northwest URD, and then the second one would be consideration of the Mill Race project. To explain that process and the minor modification and the new urban renewal plan, we'll have our consultant, Elaine Howard, present that information. And as a really quick reminder, the first step is through the Urban Renewal Agency and is not a public hearing. The second step is through the City Council, and that is a public hearing. We have included public comment that we've already received on it as part of the packet. And I will have 2 voicemail recordings to provide for you during that public hearing process as well. And so with that, what I would do is turn it over to Ms. Howard to do the presentation.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to present to you tonight, and thank you for doing the meeting virtually. I know it's cumbersome, but it'll be what our life is at this point. Kelly did a great job explaining what you're doing. So you're now convened as the Urban Renewal Agency, considering a minor amendment to the Northwest Lebanon Urban Renewal Plan to remove property from that area. If you pass this amendment, the amendment doesn't go into effect until the ordinance for creating the new district goes into effect. So that way the two work together. The ordinance for the new district is a non-emergency ordinance, so it doesn't go into effect for 30 days after it's passed. So although if you pass this tonight, it actually won't go into effect until the ordinance goes into effect. So that's the only part I'll cover now, and then let you ask questions and vote on that. And then when you reconvene as City Council, I'll have a presentation on the Mill Race Urban Renewal Plan.
Any questions of staff?
So I just wanted to make sure, I know I had questions from some of my constituents to understand if this is the right spot for the question. That they were concerned that the city funds were going to some guy's private, the private apartment complex, the gated community, and that all the city funds of putting in the streets and the water and all those things were coming out of their funds. And I tried to assure them that that's not the case, that he actually fronted the money. And I just wanted to make sure if you can kind of explain that to make sure that they understand that really that's not happening.
Sure. So the urban renewal plan, and we can talk about it in either situation, but what the mill race plan is going to be doing, which will be voted on the next section, is to create a new urban renewal area to provide its own funding source to pay for the public improvements associated with the public improvements identified within the city's transportation system plan and the city's overall plans for facilities and everything. The property that we're talking about happens to include a development, and that development includes expansion of public streets and public infrastructure. So the economic development agreement that was approved in 2017 is basically the developer is building all of the public infrastructure ahead of time. They're building it for us. And then through the increases in their property taxes as they build their private development, those increases would then be reimbursed to that developer for the improvements that they did of the public side of the equation. So there's no private boosting of their individual private property development. It's all related to the public improvements, and any of the reimbursement associated with those public improvements would be generated out of their own property tax increases. It's not generated out of the city's general fund. It's not generated out of a separate funding source. It's through his own increases based off of his development.
Great, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I'll have the city attorney read the resolution.
A resolution of the Lebanon Urban and Renewal Agency authorizing a minor amendment to the Northwest Lebanon Urban and Renewal District's boundary. Resolution number 2020-17.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 20-17. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we will adjourn as the Urban Renewal Agency and reconvene as Lebanon City Council. Agenda item number 2 is first of 2 public hearings. We're going to go into the approval of an ordinance making certain determinations and findings related to and improving the Mill Race Urban Renewal Plan and directing that notice of approval to be published. Once again, Kelly Hart. This is on page 79 of your packet.
Thank you again. So we kind of already did the introduction to all of this, and so I'll just turn it back over to Mrs. Howard to do the presentation and then answer any questions and open the public hearing.
So I am sharing my screen. It shows to me that it's shared. Does everybody else have it?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So this is the presentation on the Mill Race Urban Renewal Plan. And this is the City Council hearing, which is the final statutory required step for the adoption of a new urban renewal plan. what we will go over is just some background, a review of the components of the Mill Race Urban Renewal Plan. The city will take public testimony, there's room for questions, and then there is a vote by the city council on the non-emergency ordinance. This is the proposed mill race boundary. As Kelly said, it's about 51.45 acres. It is presently in that Northwest Lebanon Urban Renewal District, and so you just adopted a resolution to remove it from that concurrent with if this ordinance is approved. And you need to do that because any urban renewal area can only be in, any property can only be in one urban renewal area at a time. It may not be in two urban renewal areas. So this will just simply take it out of one area and put it into a new area. The specifics of the mill race plan were developed to mirror the economic development agreement that the city entered into with the developer in 2017. The time frame for this area is only to fiscal year end 2028, so it's a very short urban renewal areas. Many urban renewal areas are 25 to 30 years long. This one goes through fiscal year end 2028, so it's 8 years long. The maximum indebtedness, and Kelly did a good job explaining what that is. The maximum indebtedness is the total amount of money that may be spent in any urban renewal area on projects, programs, and administration. In this area, the maximum indebtedness is slated at $9,652,364, and that is tied to that economic development agreement. Although we have set the maximum indebtedness at that amount in working with the city on what we anticipate to be the schedule of development within the area, we believe that it won't come anywhere near that amount. However, when we did provide the notice to the taxing districts, we let them know of the full potential impact for both the amount that we anticipate it will be, which is about $3 million, versus the capacity, the $9.6 million. The reason we had to keep it at that amount was to enable the city to fulfill their economic development agreement that they've already signed. So we crafted the urban renewal plan to make sure that the city was in compliance with their agreement. There are only 2 projects in this urban renewal plan. One is the developer incentives, which is what Kelly talked about, which is a reimbursement to the developer for spending on public infrastructure projects. So again, the developer has to perform first, so it's not giving the developer money up front that may or may not come to fruition. The developer performs first, the developer pays their property taxes. The assessor's office, because this will be in an urban renewal area, will pay the taxes off of the increased value within that area from the time this plan is adopted to the urban renewal agency, and the urban renewal agency will then rebate back to the developer a portion of that property tax revenue. The second project is just administration. So it's allowing the city to repay themselves both for the development of this plan, but also for any administrative tasks that they have to undergo during the time frame that the plan is in effect. So those things are creating an annual budget and doing the financial accounting that's required for any urban renewal area. As Kelly indicated, there are no impacts through the creation of this new urban renewal area to property tax payers. The impacts are on taxing jurisdictions. So a lot of times people get confused about urban renewal, and I think part of that confusion comes because urban renewal is on everybody's property tax bill, and it has an amount tied to it. And what is not so clear is the fact that whether or not urban renewal exists in your city, those property taxpayers would pay the same amount of money. So if all urban renewal went away in Lebanon, the amount of money that each property taxpayer pays to urban renewal would be redistributed to the different taxing districts, like the county, the city, the education service district, all the different taxing districts. So urban renewal is not an impact on property taxpayers, this new plan. Those impacts are on the taxing districts. In this particular area, those impacts, at this point, the property taxes paid in that area are very low. The taxing districts are not getting property taxes on any improvements within the area. If this development actually pans out the way it is projected, once the urban renewal area ends, all of those taxing districts will receive a lot more money than what they're presently getting. So it will overall, in a very short time frame for urban renewal, be a very positive impact to all of the different taxing districts. Two notes on taxing districts. One, when we made this presentation to the county, they voluntarily passed a motion in support of the adoption of this plan. The county does not always do that. So that's something you should be happy about. It shows their confidence in what you're doing and their appreciation for what you're doing. The other important thing is when we talk about impacts on taxing districts, school districts and education service districts are impacted differently than regular taxing districts. We call that an indirect impact to them because they are funded through the state school fund. The state school fund pays on a per pupil basis to all school districts. So urban renewal impacts money that might go to the state school fund, but there are many other funding sources for that state school fund, including income tax revenues and federal funds and lottery funds. So what we call it is an indirect impact on the state school fund. The fact that urban renewal exists anywhere within the state impacts that state school fund the same as an urban renewal plan in the city of Lebanon. Again, the impacts are to the taxing districts. We do anticipate those impacts will be less than the full maximum indebtedness. They will occur as that development occurs. It won't take away anything from what those taxing districts now get because they're getting very, very little taxes on that. And in the future, they'll get a lot more. And again, there are no impacts on any bonds or local option levies as a result of this new proposed urban renewal area. As Kelly again said, there is a specific statutory process for the creation of any new urban renewal area. The city has followed that process. It went to the agency for their review on June 10th. All of the different taxing districts were sent letters on June 11th. On July 15th, the Planning Commission passed a resolution that the mill race plan conforms to the comprehensive plan. There was a county briefing on July 21st where they voted to support adoption. They did also ask for the city to consider future traffic impacts, and that is just something that the city will want to coordinate with the county on. There was a citywide notification through August utility bills, and then this hearing tonight to vote on the non-emergency ordinance. And again, this is done in coordination with the removal of property from the Northwest Lebanon Urban Renewal District. So at this point, we can, I'm not sure how your public hearing process goes, if you want to take public testimony first and then ask questions, or if the mayor and city council want to ask questions first and then take public testimony. So I'll leave that up to you.
Let's just ask any questions of Elaine now, if anyone has anything. Hearing none, thank you, Elaine, I appreciate it. It's very informative. And at this point, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing for the establishment of the new mill race URD at 6:30 p.m. And the city attorney will now read the required hearing procedures.
Mr. Council President, I wasn't anticipating that they would need to be read on this matter. Eileen, have you had experience on whether the land use portions of that have had to be read into the record?
I think every city does it differently. And so it's however you hold your public hearings. So I'll leave it up to you on how you decide is the best way to move ahead.
Let me get to it and then I can read it. Normally I do them when it's a small piece of property, very specific piece of property that we're dealing with.
Well, as we're preparing for that, just a reminder, we did receive public comments. I think there's 2 or 3 emails and notes that were included in the packet. And once we read the procedures, I will play the 2 voicemails that we have received as part of it.
All right, I'm ready. The City Council will follow the quasi-judicial hearing procedure set forth in 197.763. Nobody cares, but they're posted on the wall in a facility that we're not at. At the commencement of the hearing, councilors will announce any ex parte contact or conflicts of interest. If you have any questions about what either of those are, please let me know. We will start out with a staff report. After the staff report, there'll be questions by councilors. After that, we will open it up for public testimony. Audience may provide oral or written testimony or voicemail testimony, apparently, concerning issues relevant to the hearing. All testimony or evidence must be directed towards the criteria described in the staff report or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulation. Failure to raise an issue, including constitutional issues or other issues related to the proposed conditions of approval, if any, accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the City Council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issues, precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals. Let's see. We will start out with proponents of the application, then opponents of the application, and rebuttal, if any. We'll then close the public hearing, and it will be for deliberation by council only, and no new evidence will be allowed. With that, and if there's no questions, Council President, you may ask if there's any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Do any councilors have wish to declare any ex parte contact, conflict, or bias?
None here.
No.
All right, hearing none, we will move on. And I know we've received the comments. They're listed on page 138. There were 3 of them, written comments. Did all the councilors get a chance to review those? Thank you. And then Kelly, would you go ahead and play the 2 audio comments for us, please?
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Patricia Mason, and I'm a resident of Lebanon, Oregon. Been here my whole life, born and raised. I'm a homeowner or mortgage owner, and I am on city water. And I would just like to vote and voice my opinion that I don't wish to have to pay for the mill race urban gated community. Please vote me no. Thank you.
Okay. Was everybody able to hear it okay?
Yep.
Perfect. And 2.
Yes, Kelly, this is Dennis Gibbs, 541-405-9971. And I want to strongly oppose the mill race money that you want to give, nearly $10 million. There's only 20 city houses that are going to be built there. Private community gated, you wouldn't even be allowed to walk in there. So no, as a taxpayer, I definitely say no, and a lot of us do. Have a great day, Kelly.
And that concludes the 2 comments that I received in a verbal comment.
All right, thank you. Would you go ahead and present your staff report?
Well, so we already did that aspect of it with the Elaine presentation.
Perfect.
I think as part of that staff report, we have clarified some of those comments and concerns based off of those public comments. And so unless any further clarification that the council would like to provide, I think we've tried to address those as best as we can already through that presentation.
Does council have any additional questions of staff?
Yeah, I have one, Kelly. Has those individuals been communicated with about the process?
We have had communication with nearly 30 plus individuals that have called in and regarding this. One of them that was as part of that has left an email as well, which I think was included. The first one, they didn't leave a callback number, so I did not have that available. But hopefully they'll hear that tonight.
Yes, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Kelly, did you walk these people that had questions kind of through the process so they had an idea that this is not like a new tax that we're passing along? Were you able to kind of portray that to them?
I did my best in every communication that we had to clearly explain the limitations of what we were doing, how it would absolutely not impact their own personal taxes or utility bills. That message was provided as clearly as we possibly could through every communication we had with individuals.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I think tonight also reinforced that same message, so I really appreciate that.
Good. Any additional questions? All right, hearing none, we will close the public hearing at 6:36. Is there any further council discussion on this issue? Hearing none, we'll ask the city attorney to please read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance making certain determinations and findings relating to and approving the Millrace Urban Renewal Plan and directing that notice of approval be published. Ordinance Bill number 2020-10, ordinance number 2950.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move for
Move for
approval.
approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve ordinance bill number 2020-10 and ordinance number 2950. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And we'll move on to agenda item number 3, another public hearing. This is amending fees and charges for city services, repealing Exhibit A, the fee schedule of resolution number 2019-22. The purpose of this public hearing is to invite public testimony regarding proposed city fees. The public hearing is now open at 6:37 p.m. and the finance director will provide his staff report.
Hello, City Council. Each year we take a look at our fee schedule to make sure that they're on par, make sure that we're not either overcharging our customers or undercharging our customers for the amount of time that it takes for us to help get them through whatever process they need throughout the city. Each year we send this out to each director, have them review their schedule, and then come back and let us know kind of what changes need to be made. This year there were very few changes, with the exception of community development. And also with the removal of the GIS division fees, we've moved that to an online platform. So many of those things are just done online, so people don't have to actually come in and get any of them. I think you've all received a copy of it, and hopefully you've had a chance to review them. And if you have any questions, please ask.
When you're checking your fees, do you check with other neighboring cities or cities like our size for the comparator?
We do.
Okay. And I also noticed that you got rid of a few.
We have tried to eliminate ones that either aren't used or could be combined with other fees.
Any other questions of Matt? All right, hearing none. Has the city recorder received any comments regarding this hearing?
No comments were received.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing then at 6:39 p.m. All further discussion will be limited to the city council and staff at this time. Is there any further discussion on this new fee schedule? Hearing none, we'll ask the city attorney to please read the title of the resolution.
A resolution amending fees and charges for city services and repealing Exhibit A fee schedule of resolution number 2019-22, resolution number 2020-08.
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2020-08. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. billing due to COVID, presented by Matt Apkin.
Well, good council. As you guys are very aware of, COVID-19 was thrust upon us in March, and we have been dealing with the effects of it. One of the things that we've done to help our citizens is to stop doing lockoffs and penalties on our water and sewer service. As we've been doing this, it's now been about 5 months. We're noticing there are a small number of our overall accounts that are not making payments, and it has caused some concern as some of those balances are getting up over $1,000. And we wanted to come and have a discussion with you, kind of trying to understand what the best case going forward is, and kind of get your direction on if we should resume our lockoffs or penalties, or kind of what service we should go with at this point.
Matt, are those commercial, personal, retail?
A lot of them are personal. I can tell you there are, as of today, we've had 355 accounts that are past due. 222 of those are just 1 month past due. So it's not quite time to pay a bill. So there could be a little bit of that in there. Outside of that, there are 63 that are either 2 or 3 months past due. Of those, 29 are owners, 34 are renters. And then there are 70 accounts that are 4 months or more past due. And out of those, you've got 27 that are owners and 43 that are renters.
Rebecca?
So Matt, have you checked with what are other cities doing?
We have checked with other cities. There have been some that are restarting their lockoffs and their late fees. There are others that are continuing to not do them. Philomath is one of the ones that not Philomath, Monmouth is one of the ones I'm thinking of that has said they have restarted theirs. I think a lot of it's up in the air right now. Do we do it now? Do we wait? We really have no idea what is next in this pandemic. Is it going to increase? Is it going to decrease? Are the federal benefits going to kick back in? Are they not? Everybody's guess is as good as the next person's.
Matt, what kind of financial impact are we looking at on the city right now?
So we've got about 73,000 that are past due, like $73,000 past due. We bill, forgetting the number off the top of my head, but we bill on a monthly basis. We bill $944,000. So,
Matt, how many have reached out to us and given a particular scenario as to why they're not making their payment?
We have had some people reach out and say, what can I do? And we've had a few that have set up payment plans at this point. I would say that is not the majority of them. We have stopped sending our calls out that say, hey, we're going to turn off your water, because since we're not doing that, we didn't want to send out those calls. We could look at changing those phone calls to say, just as a reminder, your account is past due X amount. Please, if you need help, call and set up a payment plan. Part of our worry is when these get up to $1,000 and you've got people that can't pay their bills, that's going to take possibly years to try and have them make extra payments on top of their normal bill to try and get caught up. So if we don't institute something to where we're forcing them to make payments going forward, and then say, hey, we'll set up a payment plan to work off what's here, you're going to end up with some of these people that maybe have $2,000 in past due. bills
Yeah,
as
the
well.
black hole gets deeper for them.
Yeah,
It
that's
does.
the whole goal of this, is to try and, when Matt and I talked, it was, we understand that we're in the middle of a pandemic, but some of these folks that are in the hole that deep, I mean, essentially if it goes any further, we're not gonna see it, right? So there.
I think that we should at least reach out and let them know that we need to hear from them. Otherwise, their payments are going to be due immediately, or they're going to be shut off. We need to hear from them, and we need to let them know that there's a sword of Damocles hanging over their head.
Yeah, it seems to me that communicating with that many people is a lot of work, but there needs to be some sort of communication. But you're right, at $1,000, $2,000, especially if they're a rental, then that's going to come back on the homeowners, and that's at some point, I think we're really remiss in allowing that to happen to the homeowners.
I believe on their bills there, it shows that they're past due. So they get a notice on their bills that shows, if they're past due.
Yeah, I mean, you know if you're not paying your water bill.
Right.
Well, and having a tenant, having a rental, I know that we get a lien on our property, or a notice that we have a lien on our property if our renter does not pay their water bill on time. I do know that, at the federal level, I know this is something that they're looking at Senator Merkley's office in particular, that if utilities are shutting down people or turning off their power or their water, in our case, that if this bill passes, they're going to ask that all of those people turn them back on. So I think that is a consideration too, to take into when we're thinking about what we want to do with this. If this is something at the federal level that could get turned around and we just have to turn them all off only to turn them back on, it just is something to think about. And I know also at the state level, if I'm correct, there's a moratorium, so they can't, you can't, as a landlord, can't evict a renter because they are not paying their water bill or their electric bill or their gas bill. So I don't know really that we're helping landlords in not on shutting it off or not shutting it off.
Matt, how many people were in the arrears prior to the COVID? Like, how many new cases versus, is it a significant amount, or is it? Or is that too difficult to tell?
So last month, when we looked at what we would have done, there were 44 people that had a history of being locked off. If I'm looking now, so of the 133 accounts that are past due more than 2 months, only 14 of those people have never been locked off before. So 119 of those 133 have been people that haven't paid their bills before this.
Well, I don't.
And are those? Sorry, go ahead.
I understand the pandemic, and I understand people are hurting right now. And people are losing jobs, people are losing income, people having a hard time getting benefits. And I also understand the flip side, that the city has the responsibility to provide a service and to bill for a service. And what I don't want to see is the city being taken advantage of. It's one thing to be generous and to be forgiving for a moment of time, but there could come a point when the city is taken advantage of. And that's, I think, on us to protect our city from that. When I hear the numbers like that, what we're seeing are the frequently shut off are the majority of a vast majority of the ones that are in the rears now and would be threatened with shut off. That makes me feel as though we might be in a position where we're very close to, if not already, being taken advantage of, and something needs to be done to stop it. I would love to see people reach out with a proactive plan to the city and say, I understand I'm in the rears, but here's my plan. I'd like to set up a payment plan. And I feel if those people do that and they make an effort to a good faith effort to begin to get their bill under control with some sort of a plan, then I think the city should honor that and work with them as long as they continue on whatever plan is set up and they continue to make those payments. Very similar to what would happen in the justice court if you've ever gone to our courts and you see how the judge lines out payment plans. So, but if they choose to hide from this and not come forward and try to work progressively towards a solution, I don't think we have any choice but to proceed down the path, or at least have the plan in place of what we're going to do. And if that gets overturned federally or at the state level, we deal with that as it comes. But I think the time is now to begin to look out for the welfare of the city on this issue.
Matt, I assume that a large percentage of those that are in arrears probably can't even do a payment plan because they can't make the initial use payment. So anything over and above that, they're not capable of doing.
That's where we don't have a lot of information on what they're capable of or what they're not capable of. I try and stay out of kind of how people spend their finances. That's not my jurisdiction. So how they do it, I don't know. But you know, when you do talk about those that are locked off more frequently, there is some thought, is that the case or is it something else? But I mean, we don't have the authority to go ask that.
Matt, if someone's locked off, there's a reapplication fee. Is that correct?
They have to pay their entire outstanding bill, plus they have a $50 fee for being locked off as well.
What sounds like a good plan to you as the director of a way to handle, if we go this route, how do we handle someone who comes in after being locked off and says, okay, I get it, I'm facing reality here. What do you have in mind for a plan?
You know, I think it's going to have to be per individual that comes in. I think one of the things that we probably need to do is we send out these calls before we do lockoffs. We call them IVR calls. So we send a file to the company and the company spits out a set of phone calls that says, hey, you're past due on this bill. You've got this much time to pay it. And if you can't pay it, then your service will be locked off on this date. We can adjust that message, I'm thinking. And so maybe we can send out that before, like maybe we send that out this month and say, look, next month we're going to restart lockoffs. So if you need time to figure out what's going to go on, spend between now and that time to come to the city, figure out a payment plan that you can do and go forward with it. And then at that point, if they don't do that before that time, then I don't know if we say we'll lock them off and then we'll do a payment plan if they come and want to pay, or if we just make them pay to get turned back on at that point.
I feel like that provides a good option for them.
Yeah, I like that too. I think I mean, we have a responsibility to make sure the system stays running at some point. So, and even though, like Michelle said, we may have to back off at some point, but I like giving them a 30-day notice, especially if you have not contacted us yet. We need to hear from you. We need to know your plan.
Where are we at in that billing cycle? How would that look logistically on a timeline right now, Matt?
So if we sent out our normal lock-off day for this month would be next Tuesday. So the following month, that would be the 16th on a Wednesday, because we've moved them to do it after the second month's bill is due. We've got a lot less complaints when we've done it this way. So if we sent out phone calls on Friday that said, hey, next month on the 16th, we're going to do lockoffs. You have between now and then to pay your bill in full or to come and set up a payment plan. That would give them a little bit over a month to do that.
I think that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I like that approach.
What do you think about, so anytime I hear that, you know, you have, you get a consequence with that, I don't have a problem with the consequence, I understand that. It gets shut off, and then they want to try to scramble and get the money And I know just like from bank experiences, somehow you ended up getting a bounce check, and then all of a sudden all these fees hit, and then you get pushed back behind the line so far that you're trying to unbury yourself from the fees. If we don't have a person who is just doing this back and forth, and you know the clients better than we do, is there a way to just forgive that $50 fee and to say, okay, get yourself caught up, let's get your water, put back on, and then we'll forgive this $50 fee, like during this time period, not like for always, but like during this kind of tenuous time.
Sure.
I don't know what other folks.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, we wouldn't necessarily have to charge the turn-on fee for that. I mean, that's a discretionary thing, it just covers staff time, which I don't disagree with that. I think we could put something like that together. I think the big thing is to make sure that, and when you look at the dollar value, I mean, yeah, it sounds like a lot of money, but when you look at the utility funds in general, we're okay, and we're not gonna, I mean, obviously we want to get out ahead of it a little bit, but the biggest thing is for the individuals themselves. When you get a bill and you're not being able to make it, I think we kind of at some point we're gonna have to step in and say, okay, you've got to, otherwise we will eat it, or somebody's gonna eat it somewhere.
Because eventually we'd be writing them off.
Yeah, I mean, or a lien,
The lien.
but it just gets, and who knows when you'd get that. So
I love that, Karen. I think that's a great idea. It shows some goodwill on behalf of the city to try to help.
So I have another question on that, Matt. If, let's say we went forward with this and the plan was that if they don't make contact and they do get locked off, when they do come in, the expectation is that they would have to pay their bill in full in order to get turned back on. Is that correct?
That is the normal expectation. I could understand that.
Is that
not something these people are going to be able to do.
No,
Yeah,
I can agree. It's not really a realistic request of them at this point. So we could determine what could be necessary to turn it back on and go that route.
how do we go about setting policy for that?
we're under a state of emergency right now, so I don't know that you necessarily need to set policy. I mean, and I'm being honest, I think you can take it on a case-by-case basis, because Matt and I have talked about this. You could have somebody come in that got locked off, and you could try a payment plan. I mean, and if they pay on their payment plan, okay, and we could figure out what that dollar value is. It'd have to be something that, you know, we could agree to with them. It's better than the alternative of recouping nothing, I would assume. And sure. Then you would look at it again the next month, and if they didn't pay anything, then you'd lock them off again. I mean, at some point it becomes a vicious cycle, but right. I think some of these people, once they get locked off and realize that we're going to work with them a little bit, maybe they would come around to it. There's going to be a few that, I'll just be honest, you're never going to see. So, I mean, you're just going to,
I guess I didn't mean policy, but I guess my question was, do you put a timeline to it? Like, you need to have your balance paid within 6 months of contact, or 12 months, or some sort of, how, I mean, if someone comes and says, I'm going to pay $3 a month until it's paid off, that's not realistic either.
Yeah, right. We'll have to make judgment calls on each of those depending on how much they owe. I mean, if somebody comes in and they owe, you know, $300, that's going to be totally different than the person that owes, you know, $1,200. Right. So would I say I'm going to let the guy that owns $300 go out 12 months? I mean, if they make a good enough case, I might agree to that, but I'd say, you know, $50 a month might be a good amount for that person, and in 6 months you'll be back up to normal.
And $50 a month on time. Yeah, on top of paying your bill on time.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think one thing that Ron mentioned that I think it's important to revisit is that we are under a state of emergency, both as a state and of course as a city. We do have that declaration in place. And I don't know if it's in the best interest of our city's vulnerable populations to restrict the use of clean water during this time.
What would be the alternative though? Just to
I think
not-
probably waiting till the state of emergency is over and then starting to revisit some of that. That's at least where I lie with this conversation. I know I'm in the minority on this one, but I do think that reaching out to these folks that have past due bills is important and trying to figure out a way to work with them. But I'm not in favor of turning off people's water during a healthcare crisis.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's hard for me because I feel that same way. I really do. But then you have people who are going to be $5,000-$6,000 in debt. We don't know. Is this done in December? Are we done in a year from now? And if people literally do not pay anything, that's a very
position though, where we can actually, as a city, look at that. And I mean, if they're not paying their water bill, they're probably not paying their gas bill. They're probably not paying their electric bill. They're probably not paying these other things too. And we're in a position where we can set that aside and say, yes, you will have to pay this once we have a state of emergency that is lifted or no longer in place. And I understand I'm in the minority in this one, but that's how I feel.
So certainly my heart feels the same way as you do. I also feel that I don't want to make the assumption that somebody can't pay something else and can't pay something else. Sometimes people will maybe spend differently that they shouldn't be spending, and, you know, doing things that maybe they shouldn't be doing, you know, going out and having, you know, dinner out or whatever is just an example, versus I need to make contact with the city. And if I have to not go do something fun, or, I mean, I get it. There are going to definitely be some people that are in a crunch mode. But
are we also not asking Matt to be the arbitrator of you know, well, if someone, you know, can do $50 and do 13 months, well, maybe we're asking him to kind of take up that cause and put values of what they're paying and what they're not.
I think he has to do that daily. Do you not, Matt? I mean, that you always have to do that.
In some aspects, not to this extent usually.
But that's an aspect of your job. I mean, outside of this pandemic, most of these people are not paying because of the pandemic. That's what I get. That most of these people would have been in this position regardless, and only since there was no consequence, it could go on until this is over. So I think an effort has to be made. I think some communication has to be made and some headway. If you're just paying zero, I doubt you're getting zero. There may be people that are getting zero, but there's a lot of public assistance right now. So some sort of effort has to be made. I really think we need to move forward with doing something.
I would agree. And I've been sitting in the municipal court for the last 4 weeks on non-related issues and observing what the courts are doing. And if truth be told, if you get a speeding ticket or have a probation violation or whatever, the court is assessing a fine. And the state of emergency or not, there are responsibilities to being a citizen, and that's one of them. And the judge and the court system is assessing fines. And yes, they're working on payment plans with people who are willing to work. And yes, they've got the court, the judge obviously sits in judgment and makes the judgment call on to how much and when, but that person is then put on record that you will show up and you will pay your $50 a month on the 15th, yes, and they say yes, and if not, they know there's a warrant going out. I don't see this as being any different, state of emergency or not. We have responsibilities as citizens, and if we make a effort to address those, that's where I'm all more than willing to work with people. But and what we're talking about here, not the people who come in and make a plan, but the people who just ignore the calls and ignore their bills, if they're not going to make the effort to come to the city, I don't think the city should just look the other way because of the state of emergency. I disagree with you on that, Councilor.
I understand where you're coming from. I also view it a little bit different from a court fine compared to turning off their water, their access to clean running water in the city. So I think
we're taking away their driver's license. It's the same
apples
thing.
And oranges here. So
I mean, or they lose their license.
I'm happy to, or apples and onions, we'll say. I'm happy to be the one lone no vote if some sort of something is put forward. So.
Well, I think the whole goal of this is to get people to come in and talk to us. And without any kind of, I mean, again, it goes out on your bill that you're past due, and without any kind of reinforcement that, hey, you need to come in and talk to us so that we can try and set up a payment plan. And quite honestly, I think we can be, I know Matt will be fair, and I would be as well. I mean, we're going to work with people no matter what their situation is. And we're going to probably be more lenient in times like this, but we're not doing them any favors by putting them $2,000, $3,000 in the hole. I mean, it's not going to help them. Even when the pandemic's over, they're going to be in the same situation. And I just feel like that we need to get them in here, and without some kind of a tactic or a hammer to get them in here, they're not going to come in here.
Yeah, enforcement, education.
Yeah.
I would consider some split here. I agree with Michelle. One of the basic tenets of prevention for the spread of COVID is washing your hands. If we don't have any water in a house, that's not going to happen too well. But I also know the predicament that people are getting put into. So I think we should send a special communication to these individuals, separate from the language in the bill, in addition to the bill, stating that we need to hear from them by X date or their water will be shut off. And when they come in to have that discussion with us, then we can talk about what we do, what their situation is. Have they lost their job? Why are they not paying? And then we can talk about payment plans and provide some sort of relief. But we need to get their attention. And I think we need to get that attention this month.
Yeah,
In the next billing cycle.
I think we all agree with Michelle. I think all of us agree with her, but I also agree with Ron. Without a hammer, I do not have to talk to you until next year or the year after, whenever it's, and by then, who knows how much trouble, how deep I am. You're never going to see a dime of it. So the communication is the key. And to be able to force that, you're going to need a hammer. And so I agree with the 30-day thing.
Yeah, I don't want to see our citizens get so far in the hole that the hole then becomes insurmountable and they can't get out of it. And then it's really easy to walk away. And now the poor landlord is stuck with that. And he probably has more racked up in fees than he has a second or a first and last and a security deposit. And or she, they're in trouble and
Thank you.
They can't make that payment. So this is like being a parent almost, where you need to take some protective measures of your people and make sure that you don't let them get in a position of more harm. And I feel like if we let it go much further, they're going to be in a position of more harm, and that's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
So what's the step? So what's the next plan then? So I think we all agree that setting out, making contact, saying, hey, this is what's going to happen. You need to make contact, or this is going to happen. So
if we walk back through it, and let me just kind of paraphrase what we said, if we send out a message that basically, we'd figure out some way to word it, that your water is overdue, you need to contact the city by X date, or on, I think it was the 16th, Matt, of September, we would begin lockoffs again. Please contact us and see what happens there. We could revisit this issue in the September meeting, because I think that happens before the 16th, and kind of get a feel for how many people have done it. Just to kind of give you an idea and see.
Don't move.
Great.
I do agree with that plan, but I also have a real problem with shutting people off of clean water to keep their hygiene during this pandemic. And if the public gets, enough of the public gets a share of that we're doing that, there's repercussions.
Well, and I don't think our intent is to shut anybody off. I mean, I hear exactly what you're saying, but let me frame it to you in these. I'll just make it really clear. We're either going to roll down the road where we're not going to go do shut-offs, and we're going to eat those costs as a city, or we're going to go back and we're going to at least try and develop a system to where we can try and recoup those costs. And that's really the council decision. I mean, those are the two options.
And I look at this as
how we get there.
And I look at this both ways. I mean, I understand, I hear that you're trying to say that people are going to be very upset that we're doing this. Well, on the flip side, if we as a city eat this, this means all these city, all the
the elected officials didn't do their job.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that me as a citizen or a resident here in Lebanon, I'm going to have to pay because the city didn't try to recoup some of this money. And why am I having to do that when I have to be out there and working and doing what I need to do, and I have to give up this so I can pay this? So it can go on either side.
That's exactly right. City money is all of our money, especially when it comes to water, because water is its own fund. So if we just say, look, we're gonna these people just are never going to have to pay because water is very important. Well, then I'm going to have the opposite. I'm going to have a lot of people that say, hey, how come I have to pay for everybody else's water? Then I'm not going to pay. You know, I mean, we all have to pull our fair share at some point.
Look, nobody's going to get shut off because all they have to do is come in and talk to Matt and set up a plan. That is it. So theoretically, nobody gets shut off. All they have to do is call or come in and set a plan up. That's it.
So I think we should try this, and then I like your idea of let's look at this before the September.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, the other option you've got here is we could try and send out a notice to each of these individuals that basically says, hey, you're past due, please come talk to us, and then you could stretch it out another month. I mean, it's really, I mean, there's nothing dire here. I think it's more dire for the people that are in the situation than it is for us as a utility.
I just want to make sure that the notice is very clear that the city wants to work with you, not, hey, your bills due, pay us, but hey, your bills due, we understand, but we want to work with you. You please come in. The alternative is this, but if you come in, the other alternative is that. I think it's important to make that communication very clear, that whatever goes out, Matt and Ron, is clear in describing what our intent is, at least what I understand the intent of this group to be right now.
For sure. I would like to point out one of the things that we are still doing is we are looking at various CARES Act money to see if there are ways that we can help to supplement. We've heard some differing opinions on if we can use certain money for different things. I know one of the things that we're considering is a grant that would help pay electric utilities. It wouldn't directly benefit the city, but it would definitely benefit the citizens of the city. And so we're still looking at other options to see if there's different ways that we can help these individuals that are past due on their bills as well.
I think that's great. So do we have consensus? I don't think we need a motion on this. We can just have consensus.
Yeah, I just want to.
I'm still not in consensus of this plan, but that is okay with me.
That's still consensus.
Can I clarify?
Exactly.
So we're going to send out a letter, or Matt, can we send out a letter to these accounts, or would we be better? How would you prefer to do that?
Yeah, we can probably do letters. Again, we've sent out one set of letters saying how late people were. We did get some payments from that.
Okay.
But we haven't been doing that every month at this point.
Can we do the call?
We can start doing that again as well.
Can we do the phone call thing as well?
Sure.
I mean, I think we should throw everything at it in an attempt to make contact and get these people in to meet with us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then we won't.
I agree with that. Phone call and letter.
Robert, what was that?
I said, I agree. Phone call and letter.
Okay.
And then no lock-offs in September, see how it rolls out.
After the council meeting. in September.
Rediscuss, well, I mean, so we're gonna send this out and say, hey, we want to work with you. And then September meeting, revisit this and
Yeah.
see what kind of response we got. And then from the September meeting, then we would look at this and go, all right, are we gonna do lock-offs in October or not? Okay.
Okay.
Is that what I'm hearing? Is that good? I just want to make sure I got it right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Matt.
Yep.
You're up on deck again for number 5, authorizing the issuance, negotiated sale of a full faith and credit financing agreement and notes to refinance outstanding obligations of the city designated and authorized representative, financial advisor, and special counsel and related matters. Whoever wrote these agenda items out this week sure was worthy. Goodness, Matt Apkin.
Well, most of these, I believe, have come from legal experts, which is why they are so long, I'm sure.
Paid by the word. Here we go.
So the city's looked into refinancing the city's 2010 wastewater revenue bond. We've worked with the PFM group or financial advisors, and they've said, you know, we're looking at about a 10% savings or about $300,000 over the next 10 years or 11 years. So really what this resolution is doing is giving me or Ron the authority to work with them to go forward and refund the bonds and legally sign the documents to do the refunding.
I think it's always great when we can do that.
Are there any questions?
No, good plan.
Yeah.
All right, if no other questions, we'll ask the city attorney to read the resolution.
A resolution authorizing the issuance and negotiated sale of a full faith and credit financing agreement and notes to refinance outstanding obligations of the city designating an authorized representative, financial advisor, and special counsel and related matters under resolution number 2020-18.
Move to approve.
Second.
And moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2020-18. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is carried. Number 6, recommendation to award the Sherman Street Waterline Replacement Project. Ron Whitlatch.
Thank you again, City Council. So back in January this year, we requested approval to bid the Sherman Street Waterline project. We were close to putting it out on the street, and then COVID hit, and we pulled back from that a little bit. We got a little busy with other things. So we just put it out here, and we received bids on Tuesday. You can see we received 13 bids. This is a first for me. We rejected 4 bidders. And normally people are pretty good, but it was for a variety of different reasons. Fortunately, one of the low bid was still good, and that's Pacific Excavation. You can see they were about 30% lower than what our engineer's estimate was. We've worked with them lots, and with that, I can answer questions, but I would recommend that we award the project and move forward with it.
Any questions for staff?
Please refresh my memory on this actual replacement project.
So right now there is a 2-inch water line on Sherman Street between 10th and 7th. We are putting in an 8-inch water line with fire hydrants. There's currently no hydrants in that location either through that whole stretch. So the fire department will be happy that they'll have new hydrants out there, and all new services to the residents, and that's kind of the gist of the project.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions for Ron?
I move we accept the Pacific Excavation bid.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to award the Sherman Street Waterline Replacement Project. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 7, approval to advertise project for bids, the Gills Landing boat dock replacement. Ron Whitlatch.
Okay, thanks again, Council. Normally this would come under the consent calendar. I wanted to touch on it a little bit tonight. This is for replacement of the dock that we lost in April of 2019. We've been working with FEMA, which has been quite the process. I'll say. We finally just got authorized to go out for bids with this. I got to tell you that we're probably not ready just yet to go out for bids. We're going ahead with approval just in case we can get it out this fall. It's a possibility that maybe spring before we can get everything put together and go through all the federal requirements that we got to go through when you're getting FEMA money. But at that, we wanted to be ready to go instead of waiting on a particular council meeting. If we can pull everything together real quick, then we'll get it out this fall. If not, we'll wait and get it out in the spring when the water levels come down. So with that, I would recommend that that you authorize us to go out to bids on that when we're finally ready to do so.
Any discussion or questions? Entertain a
I
motion.
guess as a side, it's about $110,000 project. Some of the quotes we've received, so it'll be about $110,000. I think we get $94,000 or $98,000 from FEMA, and the rest will be supplemented with our parks maintenance fund. So
I would move we authorize staff to proceed with the FEMA position of replacing the boat dock.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the bid advertisement for the Gills Landing boat dock replacement. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8, City Manager's Report. Ron Whitlatch.
Thank you again. So I'm not going to go through in detail. I will tell you that we have been looking, I think Matt alluded to it a little bit, at different opportunities to use CARES Act, CDBG funds for different granting opportunities, whether that be through small business, whether it be utilities. We're kind of waiting to hear what the next round of stimulus, if it happens, has in store for us. So just know that we're continuing to go down that path. We're looking for ways that we can help out our residents. It's right now everything's in such flux that it's hard to come up with a good plan. Every time we think we've got a good plan, something changes and there's some new regulation comes out. So we're going to continue to do that, and just know that we're Alicia, our economic development catalyst, is working hard on that. I think she's working on that daily and trying to go through all that process and keeping Kelly and I and Matt informed of what she's doing, and trying to come up with some good ideas for granting opportunities for citizens here in town. And then the other item of note, and that's why Angela's here tonight, she's been busy, real busy, looking at the pay scales for exempt staff. And I'll kind of let her get into the details of this, but our pay scales, we have a low, medium, and high end in our pay scales. There is no mechanism for moving through those pay scales as an exempt staff member. I'll tell you that there's been no evaluations done, and all that's changing. So we have new evaluation forms. Our staff are getting evaluations. We're going through this process, and I'll kind of give you, Angela, an opportunity to tell you exactly what we're doing here, and caveat it with that there's going to a proposed change in how we do this for exempt staff. And one of the reasons we're bringing it up tonight basically is to let you know that we'd probably be coming back with a budget amendment sometime this year in order to get everybody in the right pay scale and range to the tune of about $60,000, but that is spread out over all of the city funds, so there's really no hit. It's well within our budget, but it would require a budget amendment. So with that, Angela, I will turn it over to you to give them the rundown on what we've been doing.
So without trying to confuse anyone too terribly much, I'll say that industry standard and best practice is a step schedule similar to what the unions use. And so it would be moving our structure from that mid, min, max kind of a schedule where you just throw someone in at a salary range when you hire them, into a step schedule where when you hire individuals, you hire them at step 1 or a step 2 based on their qualifications, experience, skills, etc. And any placement in a higher step in the range would require very pronounced reasons, such as it's a specialty skill, it's a very hard to fill position, etc. So it aligns with the pay equity law that was passed in 2019 and allows us for a more structured approach when we onboard employees that are not part of the union, so that we have a fair and competitive wage for them. It helps with retention. As Ron mentioned, there's not been any evaluations or probably pay increases for non-union staff in quite some time. And when I'm doing the compensation evaluation, what I'm looking at are comparable cities to our size of population, our budget, and our overall FTE that the city employs. And then I'm matching our positions with their positions and looking at what they use for a pay scale so that I can develop a pay scale for us that is similar and within market. When I started the project, I can tell you that overall our non-union staff were approximately 14% below market as far as their pay and the salary ranges. And most of the folks were somewhere around in the 20s. So it was very far off from market. What this new step schedule will do is we'll get employees to within plus or minus 5% of market, which is a lot better and a very first step in a probably 3 to 4 or 5 year process to really fine tune not only the pay schedule, but the employees' pay. So I'll take a breath there, and if anyone has any questions, let me know. But it's a complex process, but I believe we've landed in a very fair and equitable place. And the next step will be to evaluate each individual employee and place them within the step schedule.
I'm glad to see you doing that, Angela. I appreciate the work on that. And I think being fair to our employees is one of the most important things we can ensure happens, and making sure that we keep good quality employees that we have by paying them a fair wage and on a fair schedule. So I think that's a great plan, and I appreciate us moving that direction.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's
I
very
agree.
It's tedious. It's a lot of work. So thank you for taking that on.
I agree, and I believe that we ought to take care of the opportunity to make sure we put this on the calendar and do it on a regular basis so we don't get too far behind again.
So did I hear correctly that, is it only the non-union employees that are not having annual evals?
Well, I would say
Yes.
that probably all employees were lacking. We've recently instituted a new evaluation form for everyone except the police department. The police department has kind of a unique evaluation that we're still going to be having to work through that process to make sure that they have the very specific things on their evaluation forms. The other employee groups, the AFSCME group and the non-union group, those evaluation forms are in place, and we've started to really look back. I did a look back and said, okay, anybody who hasn't had a review since May, and it was due in May, we need to get those done for May, June, July, August. But anybody who was due prior to that, we're gonna just wait as we come around to their anniversary date. So I didn't want to put too much on the directors to get done. Those evaluations are starting to come in and trickle in slowly. So by the time we reach May next year, we should be 100%, and every employee will have had an evaluation in the previous year.
Good plan.
Yeah, I like the anniversary date, because that to me makes the most sense for each employee, and then the bosses of their can figure that out. So then the goal is that every year, every employee has an evaluation, correct?
Correct.
Yes. And I definitely agree with the police having different questions. I can personally tell you, we had some very touchy-feely things that came from HR that they wanted the police to discuss, and it's like, do you really want me to tell you what might bother me on a day-to-day basis? And I don't think they want to hear, so I appreciate that you recognize that the police is a little bit different, though they still obviously have annual evals as well.
Yeah.
We had an evaluation form, and that's one thing that Angela's also done for us since she's come on board, is create the new evaluation form. Our old one, I want to say, was 11 pages.
Yeah.
11 pages of handwritten, and we've got a system in place now, and the directors and her and I have met, and I think we've got a good plan going forward. But we wanted to bring this to you because there is a budget amendment associated with it. And I guess I should say that we're trying to put everybody as close to what their salary is now in the range that they're in. Some of them are going to increase a little bit, but so as not to impact this budget. But there was really no way to not do that and get some people where they should be. So we'll bring that back at some point in the future, but I just wanted to make you aware of it so it wasn't a surprise when we came up down the road. And I think that's it, unless anybody's got any questions about anything else on the report.
Okay. Let's see, items from council.
Yes, actually, I had something. So I got the paper this afternoon from the Lebanon Express, and I was reading the article about our executive session that we had last week. Was it last week or this week? Last week, because we're in this week. Where it, said that we were talking about, the wastewater plant and who was there during the session, and then just prior to the vote that Rebecca and I both left the session, and it seemed really abrupt, and I really wanted my constituents to know that I was definitely on board with the unanimous vote of 4 people. But prior to me leaving, I just wasn't sure how long the executive session was going to last, and I had to be at work in 10 minutes. I had classes to teach up at the academy, so I couldn't just leave that. But I wanted, folks to know that I was definitely on board and support with the way that the council voted in my absence, and I actually said so. So I just wanted to make sure that was on board. It just looked really awkward to me, the way that was written, like I didn't want to be a part of the vote, and maybe I didn't agree with it or whatever. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other items from council? Do we have any press on tonight? No items from press?
Yes, we do.
We do. Any items from press?
I just wanted to ask if Mayor Aziz is there. I couldn't tell from looking at the group there.
The mayor is absent tonight.
Okay, is anybody else absent?
No.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Always nice to have a voice pop in out of nowhere and surprise you. Our next scheduled council meeting is September 9th at 6 p.m. That'll be a regular session. And at this point, we're going to recess the regular session. We'll clear the Zoom meeting and proceed to executive session per ORS 1926602A to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent. We're in recess. Okay, we'll reconvene the regular session and move on to agenda item number 9, approval of the employment contract for the interim city manager. Does anyone have any further discussion on the contract? And Trey, did you have something to present?
Well, yeah, I can.
Either one of us, I don't care.
Yeah, I can do that. So Nancy and I talked, and since we can't discuss salary in executive session, she agreed to this week to a starting salary of $140,000. And I think there's other details in the contract as well. I believe, was health insurance included in that? I don't remember that piece. Okay, no. So that's the salary. So if there's any discussion about that, or if you'd like to ask her anything about that, leave that up to you guys.
I was more than fine with that.
Me also.
Agree.
Okay. Nancy, anything you'd like to say before we?
I am super excited to be joining you. Thank you.
We're glad to have you. We're looking forward to working with you. Appreciate your willingness to work with us. So thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I would entertain a motion.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign an employment agreement as proposed on behalf of the city of Lebanon with Nancy Brewer as interim city manager.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the employment contract for Nancy Brewer for the interim city manager position. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Welcome to the team, Nancy.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yay.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, the meeting is adjourned.